want to welcome everybody to our literary book launch and virtual book launch and literary reading tonight. So glad you could all be here. And Susan will be here a bit later, and I think at the end we'll be able to say hello. I am representing Bookwoman. I convene Bookwoman series called Getting to Know the Goddess. And we are so grateful and so pleased to be part of the sponsorship of tonight's reading and book launch. So that's really what I wanted to say. So glad to be a part of this and so glad to have all of you joining us. So Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the evening for us.
Thanks, Linda, and welcome again, everybody. I am one of the sister poets. My name is Jennifer Bloom, and we are here, as Linda said, we're to celebrate and launch these wonderful collection edited by Pamela Eakins and composed of poems by the Sisters of the Holy Pen and reflections on death. And it's actually the second book in a trilogy, and we were honored to launch Pandemic Corona through Bookwoman, and we'll have a third book coming out later this year, Sacred Earth. But today we are diving into a journey through death and in all the manifestations that comes with it. So we really invite you to join us on this journey, and you can participate in many different ways. There is a chat, and I see that many people have already started to say hi in the chat. You can tell us where you're zooming in from. One of the wonderful things about connecting through this technology is that we get to be together across all different spaces in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be able to travel. So so you can open the chat, you can share reflections in the chat. Pat Welsh is going to be running the technology part of this, and she will be sharing the program. We have 31 poems that we will read sequentially, and in a moment I'll turn it over to Pamela Eakins, who will be our guide for the journey. And so we invite you to sit back and soak it in. We invite you to share your comments and your own reflections if that feels right for you, and really welcome. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Pamela, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm receiving the talking stick, our token pen, because that is what we use for a talking stick around here. And I would like to thank you so much, Linda, for welcoming us in tonight. And also Jennifer, really appreciate all the work you've done, and Path, to put this together, because it's not that easy putting together an event where you have 30 people reading, especially 30 people moving along a journey, 30 people who are in various places in the world. And right now we are so excited to be in Austin, Texas. Yay, our favorite town, where I hear it's pretty cold today as we usher in the season of death. And I would like to begin with the poem Death Comes, and then we will walk through this strange and amazing journey. Death comes, beating drums, screaming out the low wail of fate and doom. Time has come. Too soon, I scream, be gone. Knowing full well, all the while, it is late night, has come the dark hour, no dawn, but corpses strewn about the strand, rolling twixt sand and sea. Stretches out her bony claw, reaches, brushing hand and boot, touches soul, screaming all the while, come, brethren, beat the drum, come, sister, pound the nail, time, 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 time has come, 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 come. Hear not the horses scream, but bleeding, beating hooves with every crash upon the shore, submerging to emerge once more, throwing off old forms, waves of inert stagnation, fatal moves, grasping for gestation, fetal moves, birth, another breath, respiration, incarnation, the icy transformation of death comes to release, casting off the empty shell of dead and bootless grief. And now we enter our journey into death in so many manifestations. This book has 7 sections, 7 chapters, and now we enter into chapter 1, vigil, vigil, keeping the vigil in the death chamber. Here is the unknown. Here is the waiting. Here is the holding of breath, waiting for the release, traveling through all the stages of death, the wonder and the surrender, the waiting, the waiting, the waiting for the last gasp. And now we begin with our first poet, Maura McBratney.
The intimacy of death. We don't think of death as intimate, but it is. Witnessing a being traversing their last moments, taking that last breath. It is a sacred time, a liminal time, where life as we know it is ending, and a new life has not yet appeared. It is a pause button. A person hasn't worked this hard since they were born. And the same hush that felt in the delivery room, awaiting that first cry, feels similar at the deathbed. It is a sacred time, a liminal time, and yet timeless, where the cacophony of the outer world fades as we await for that last exhalation. Maura McBratney.
My beautiful monster. My brother John was lying in bed very quiet. There we all were, looking straight into the face of death. Dying from AIDS isn't a pretty sight. It makes one's body look like a monster. This definitely wasn't the John we knew, but there was also an enormous strength and beauty that shined out from deep within him, and that was all we saw while he was still alive. I remember holding his hand and singing to him as he lay there, eyes closed. Where had he gone? I didn't know. In a morphine dreamland, I suppose. The song I was singing was about the old ones. They were telling him to lay his body down and rest, that they would bring him peace and love. The crazy thing is that as I sang, John woke up and was very lucid for just a moment and asked me who else was there in the room with us. I told him it was just me. He said he could hear someone else singing too. What was happening? I did not know, but his body relaxed and he seemed to be at peace. It felt like his angels were there. Then I left the room for a bit, and my mom and dad and I heard him make the weirdest sounds, the death rattle. Our hearts sank. We sat there frozen as the earth fell away from under our feet. Then silence. John had left his body. The empty body he left behind looked like the exoskeleton of an insect that had just molted. It was so hollow and empty. It was so very different than the body we saw just moments before. It was then that I realized just how much space his spirit and soul had occupied in his body. It was enormous. Now he had outgrown his body and his spirit had moved on. A few days later, I went home, changed forever. You know, it may sound strange, but to be in the presence of someone dying is a gift, and I hold it in my heart as something beautiful. I never felt closer to my brother, my beautiful monster, than on the day he died. It is a feeling that transcends everything I have ever known or felt. Other than giving birth to my son, Jeannie Goldman.
The dream. I had a dream as she lay dying, her breathing erratic, stopping and going and stopping, counting the breaths, wondering if each holding, if that inhale of life was the very last. A feather drops from the sky, landing upon the resting butterfly wings. Quiet wind was looking for this drifting feather. Otherworldly winds begin blowing, growing in strength from the east. And Bear is licking my face. Winds are moving in the blue air, wind touching water, arriving unannounced upon water's silent, smooth surface, watching invisible winds moving closer and closer, ripples rising, forming shifting textures, winds creating glistening patterns, rich in changing beauty. Mesmerizing butterfly, sitting on firm, hard ground. Delicate, bluish purple wings start slowly moving. Winds lifting butterfly wings, flapping in time to a certain beat. Between the worlds, a keyhole is opening. Passage to where? Where is the key? Between the worlds, a keyhole is opening. Where is the key? Breathing like women in birthing, whose sole purpose is bringing one into the world. She is the woman breathing her own soul into another world. Bear's dark, cavernous mouth held wide in the west. Butterfly is blown and pulled swiftly across the landscape of her life. The feather is the key, unlocking this small tunnel between the worlds. The feather is the key. She is light as a feather, beautiful as the butterfly. Diving with tucked wings into the one-way tunnel, with transformed heart, descending into earth. Winds stop blowing. The winds stop blowing. Bear closes her mouth. Bear closes her mouth. Cheryl Ban.
Song of my mother. A windowed opening takes me to her. She is not there. A deck of shadows, ancient wisdom laid on the floor. Starry records reveal a river of souls, one soul, a matrix of unraveling mysteries, a paradox between the lines, emerging. Up close, awakened, I see her back arching, curved shoulders, arms lifting slightly, spread as wings. She begins to sing an ululation, a primal cry echoing the earth she has become. Her voice deep within, rumbling, has always been her song, her movement, her symphony, a splash of color, sound, energy, vibration, a spark, a flash, then gone, still ringing. Carol McLeod.
Thank you so much. And now we are entering into chapter 2 of the book called Will Death Wait? Most of our thoughts are about death coming too soon, too soon. But that's not always the case. In fact, there are times when most of our thoughts are calling out, not soon enough, not soon enough. Because life can be so difficult for us. And many times, many of us would rather just leave the planet. Will Death Wait? Chapter 2 is about those feelings. Our first poet with selections from chapter 2 is Alina Voss. And at this moment, Alina is in Latvia. Alina lives in Latvia. We have poets from around the world in our group, and she is unable to get sound right now in Latvia. And so our beautiful poet, Carolyn Ayers, will be reading Elena's poem. And thank you to both of you. And I'm sorry you could not get on, Elena. So I'm going to turn this over to Carolyn to read for Elena.
Back to myself. Don't ask anything of me. Just recently, all of you here, just recently learned your words, the world with countless roads. If I am not enough for you, leave me with the deer, deep in the trees, in the owl's feathers. Plant me with the flowers in the meadow. Do not ask for the all of me. You just recently arrived to this place. Don't ask me to fit in your frames. Don't ask me to do in the ways you think. If you don't like what I say, leave me at the edge of the lake by the calm mirror reflecting the whole. I will swim back to myself. I will swim back to my soul. Elena Voss.
Escaping the finite. The world is ablaze with fire in my head. Shards of crystallized life turn from radiant beams to hostile daggers. The air punctures my lungs with living. The body suffocates my soul. I am blind, deaf, and dumb to hope, a putrid breeze. This soul fire turned to cosmic burn. I am the ash. Decomposed spirit calls me home, the breath of eternity. I come unbound. Particles once held in form return to infinite source. Freedom is my hope, my cause, my choice to become unborn. Ariadne Connor.
With inspiration from Shakespeare. To be or not to be? Who dies if I am truly me? Is it more noble to suffer, to fight, to protest? Or what might happen if I laid down my fear of heartache and the natural shocks of imagined slings and arrows that the flesh is heir to? What if I shuffled off my mortal coil? Ah, to sleep, to let it end. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished for. To die, to sleep, to travel to the undiscovered country, the unknown beyond, from which I may never return. What keeps me here to bear these ills, the whips and scorns of time? Why not fly to what we know not of? For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come? For in that sleep of death, what keeps us here in this illusion of security, but the dread of something after death that makes cowards of us all? For to live as our true selves is to die to another world, to take the risk of potential we sense but cannot see. Yet, what might happen if we just let go of fear? Carolyn Ayers.
Dancing in the flames. Burn away the attachments, the longings, the fears. Throw them onto the fire. Surrender them to this truth. Someday soon, you will have to give everything up. Death comes for us all. Let this knowledge cut like a sword, severing the bonds of delusion, of false hope, of denial. Armed with trust, march into the darkness that is the fecund womb of love. Creative matrix where all possibility arises, where nothing less than truth will do. The wild other you fear pervades the shadows of the self. The cruelty of nature, a facet of its luminous nature. With destruction comes creation. So dance, dance in the flames. Valeria McCarroll.
And now we move into chapter 3, These Dark Times. Surprisingly, this is the largest section of the book. There were the most submissions in this particular category. And here the poets drop into their fears of being invaded, their fears of genocide, racism, war, homicide, cultural death of every kind. Here, the poets also acknowledge that they are at one and the same time the killers. This was so intense for me to edit, so intense for me to read these poems over and over and over during the editing process. And when I got to the very end, to Jean Mahoney's poem, You, I just wanted to fall into her arms and be held by her. And I believe as you listen, you will know why. Roberta.
The other. I pulled blackberries today. I did battle with the stubborn, knobby roots that had defied previous annihilation. With my wee tool, I dug them out. I pulled with my gloved hands. Eradication was my intention. Blackberries are my enemy. If I don't pull them out, they will take over. The blackberries are the other. I relish destroying them. They must die so that I may have the land. I understand xenophobia. Roberta Wenzel Walter.
Counterfeit justice. Forced down, the weight of oppression crushed into the unforgiving pavement, holding the whisper of a last breath. For what? $20 of counterfeit currency? Certainly a charge worthy of death. Is that really the price of a Black man's life? Was that really the price of your life, George Floyd? counterfeit, imitation, false, something that is not as it seems and ought not be, a sham, rage, race, redemption. In one last breath, will your death, George Floyd, change this world? Will it matter? Kimberly Tomlinson.
Death Montage. It's my faith. I didn't do nothing. Please, 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 I can't breathe. Please, man, please, somebody. Please, man, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Please. Man can't breathe my face. Just get up. I can't breathe. Please. I can't breathe. Shit. I can't move. Mama. Mama. I can't. My knee, my nuts. I'm through. I'm claustrophobic. My stomach hurt. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. Some water or something, please, please. I can't breathe, officer. Don't kill me. They're going to kill me, man. Come on, man. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. They're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Please, sir. Please. 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 I can't breathe. After 8 minutes and 46 seconds, his eyes shut and the please stop. George Floyd was pronounced dead shortly after. Just wait.
Fourth victim. Cigarette in one hand, glass in the other. My mother looks askance. My father's face, a mask of anger. Lives torn apart by circumstance. The call to battle must be answered. Instead of gain, all turns to dust. Lives are taken, nothing given. Who benefits from all of this loss? Mother's life is pulled asunder. Child's eyes are filled with fear. And when she takes it one step further, child loses all that's dear. Years of wanting, years of sadness, death swallowed up what once was whole. For what? The question lies unanswered. Nothing can explain the toll. Nikki Broadwell.
The death of normal. A piece of Chinese graffiti painted on a white subway wall hits us between the eyes, the strange characters like hieroglyphics from the future. We can't go back to normal because the normal that we had was precisely the problem. How I long for the death of normal, the death of a system that turns the gifts of the earth into trash, the death of a fossil fuel extraction, the source of so much pollution and so much hurrying and scurrying around the planet to maximize our profits. We have been warned, oh, so many times, so many societies falling before us, chasing after resources, no matter the warnings foretold by the diminishing returns. Stop now in our tracks by a global pandemic. We can take a breath of clean air, take stock at what normal brought us. It was normal to eat food trucked in from 3,000 miles away. It was normal to expect power from a grid so huge that a single branch falling would paralyze the entire eastern seaboard. It was normal to send our trash to China in the empty shipping containers that brought to our big box stores so much soon to be trash goodies, enough to fill an ocean with plastic in its final seduction as food for sea life. It was normal for us to train the best minds of our society to spend the better part of their lives enticing us into addiction, to spend more time on our soon-to-be electronic waste phones. I look forward to the death of normal and the growth of our essential selves, to know what is indeed essential to life on this giving and ever-forgiving planet, to know how we can care for each other. The veil has lifted, the scales fallen from our eyes. Do we really want to return back to that normal that was so precisely our undoing? No, it is time to say goodbye to ourselves, the enemy ancestors. Amanda Kovitana.
The evolution revolution in the time of CV19. So why am I here now? And who knows but me? But me, I don't see here now in this evolution revolution that's in the making, but who else could it be but me? I can't stand, but I stand in this land for the questions in this time of transformation, in this evolution revolution. It seems that the cosmos, with the most to gain, the most to change, and the most to lose, and the most to gain, is up for transmutation for all the populations of the universe. I can stand, but I don't stand for the whining of those that have refused to share, for the good of the care of the next generations who struggle to understand what love really is when so many men have to die, so that we can all begin again to walk in the shoes of every man, so we can comprehend the pain they live in every day. And yet, the joy of living remains in the games we play, to remain here in the generations that came and went and came and stayed, to make the game once and for everyone to remain, to become sane again. So I remain in the same game of love, to tame the blindness attached to color, race, creed, gender, or not. And that is why I came to be the change we all want to see. Jan Zemansky Edgerton.
Rome burns. This moment I can't see past. This future shrouded from us all. This breaking point, this teetering brink, this flashpoint of grief, of outrage. I grieve for the death of America as we wanted it to be. This shiny and flawed experiment, high ideals and revolution on the backs of slaves and the deaths of Native people. We were born in resistance, in revolution. Will we end that way too? Is this the great reboot, or is this the end of us all? What will this moment look like in 50 years? I can't see past the fear and the chaos to some calmer shore on the far side of now, that sees how it could have been rebalanced, that knows how it all turned out. I can't see the future. Instead, I think of my friend's 18 or 19-year-old niece who lives a block or two away from where a white cop knelt on a black man's neck while he cried for his mother, said he couldn't breathe, and died. She protested peacefully with her black neighbors, and the cops came in riot gear and shot tear gas and rubber bullets anyway. Now her neighborhood is a war zone. The one grocery store is destroyed, so the few who have cars drive to the suburbs to bring back food for everybody else. And they protect each other all by themselves in a Minneapolis neighborhood. I can't see the future. Instead, I remember what it felt like to run in terror on broad DC boulevards that contain the monuments to our experiment with governing, while the clouds of tear gas are drifting down the streets between the buildings on a sunny, cool day. I start out marching down those broad streets that morning, filled with the surging, wordless pride of a 19-year-old for being a real citizen, exercising my right to stand up, speak up for what I believe in. I am being democracy, as my immigrant forebears taught me to do and fought to protect. Instead, as the tear gas floats around me, I run in terror with nowhere to hide. I see the young men who had incited the crowd to rebel riding around in the passenger seats of police cars, their arms out the window, chatting with the drivers. I see it with my own 19-year-old eyes. I know what I saw. Most of us are decent. Most of us care. Most of us want to get along with each other. But right now, my mouth is full of outrage. My throat is full of tears. And I can't see past this moment. I can't see the future on the other side. I just can't. Karma is kneeling on our necks. Nero is looking at his ratings, and Rome burns. Goddess, help us all. Kathy Carlson.
Finis Patriarchus. The era of his cruelty and incapacity to love ends now. She could have become like her ravaged sister that no words or booze or drugs could ever repair. Instead, a small voice whispered into her oceanic loneliness, into her tenebrous despair. You are worthy. You are deserving of love. Remember who you are. Sometimes she could taste it in fluffy French toast, drowning in soothing streams of amber syrup, warm and buttery. Sometimes she felt it in her young lover's embrace, in the heat of their bodies' intense and fugacious desire. Saturnian taskmasters, pain and disappointment taught her not to rely on earthly mirages, no matter how delicious the delusion. Then one day the embodiment of her torment ceased, as though he had never existed at all, except in some distant quarter, minute and muted. As his darkness grew, her sun rose. As he crumbled, she stood tall. As he decayed, she blossomed. As he dies, she ascends. I am Despain.
Carolyn Ayers reading for Elena Voss. Spilling. The sun is high in the sky, but my heart is spilling like cold rainwater spills through the roof of an old fisherman's hut. Long ago, love was changed to the color of gold. Suffering runs as electricity in the wires around the globe. I am filled with the desire to become as mighty Shiva, to gain the power of distraction, to consume the broken seed. I wish to become as the earthquake, to eat all the mining facilities and the industrial farming factories in remote corners of Earth. I wish to become as the ocean storm, to sink the boats of evil, transporting the weapons of war. I wish to be as the whirlwind, to blow away the machinery of human control, enchaining the hopes of those who were born free. I wish to be as the bushfire, to burn the fear and all violence inside our heads, gathered in thousands of years. Sometimes I wish to be all of that, to free the way, to let beauty grow. Alina Bass.
Time to reboot death. One or more of these have been beaten into us since birth. Death leads to hell if we don't lead a virtuous life. Death leads to hell if we don't believe exactly what they do. Death is part of some kind of hell wheel linked to life we are trapped in unless we renounce life. There is nothing after death. It's absolutely the end of everything. Death, which is otherwise tragic, is okay if you're a martyr. Death, which is otherwise tragic, is made okay if you die a hero, killing others. Whatever it is, whatever we've been told, if we fear death, then we fear life. And if we fear life, then we can be manipulated and sold someone else's bill of goods. Once we no longer fear life or death, we are free to become truly free. It's time to reboot our consciousness and eliminate fear of death and its cascading cohorts. What if, as infinite consciousness having infinite experiences, death is one of the greatest gifts of all? What if death is what gives us infinite opportunities to live and then return and experience life from unlimited number of possibilities? What if death is the best do-over trigger in life there is? It's time for us to awaken from the dream that death is anything other than awakening from another dream that is life, and that it's all okay. Game over. Rest a bit and go back in and do it again. Do it better if you can. And grieve and feel joy and grieve some more. Honor your loved ones, yourself, your grief, your joy when someone you love dies. And let yourself and them be. Lisa Hamilton.
Some things are beautiful with the life leached out. A trail of pearled shells littered along the tide line. Sea kelp, ghost crab, driftwood. 2 chipped blue mugs upon the splintered wooden shelf. An abandoned key ring, the missing lock. The dying embers of the campfire after the songs have been sung. A plume of smoke rising from the extinguished candle. A single frost-covered leaf dangling from the naked tree branch. the afterglow of the setting sun, an unmade bed, dried flowers, a dark closet full of costumes, a half-deflated balloon hovering an inch above the kitchen floor, world's best mom, the still body of an iridescent hummingbird, an abandoned spider web, sun-bleached bones, rose petals littered upon the empty park bench, the child standing in her father's scuffed shoes, the cracked picture frame holding the faces of ancestors you've never met, stopped clocks in an empty room, 3 o'clock, 9:17, 11:11, dying echo of a Tibetan singing bowl. Judy Ann Morse.
You got shaken to your core. The grief and shock waves ripple in and out and out. Beyond the self that you were familiar with, that self that you always relied on day to day seems to have disappeared into the darkness where fear grows too easily. It covers over your rock solid self with lichen and green moss, slippery, slimy, wet, unstable. Your feet can't find solid ground. But I know you. I know you can walk upright, find solid ground once again. You will remember the feel of the journey. Find the paths that take you from this darkness. The roads these days are not smooth. They twist and turn. Can't see what's ahead. Don't know what's around the next bend. Here's a flashlight. Here's my hand. Here's my steady way. Now, take this warm blanket to wrap around your shoulders. Here now, breathe slowly. Here now, breathe slowly. Here now, breathe. Let me cover you in warmth. Let me cover you and hold you in these times. Jean Mahoney.
And now we move into chapters 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 4 is about grieving. Chapter 5 about ceremony. And chapter 6 about visitation. How we grieve. What happens when someone dies? How we create ceremony around death to bring meaning to life and death, and how we experience visitations from those who are on the other side. And not only do we experience all of these things when someone dies, when we lose someone in death, but we also experience them when we lose love. Our lives are full with death every day. Deaths big and deaths small. And now we begin with Pamela Wiley.
The alchemy of until. Until the cosmic river of all souls takes the weight of my grief unto itself. until I can fully release the death of us to the flow of love in the dimension far beyond this sighted world. Until I am fully alive in the joy memory of our relationship and the radiance in this dimension without the weight of my grief. Until then, I hold all possibilities in my open palm with enough space between us for the healing that must be done. Water has such deep memory. Pamela Wiley.
A cowboy beyond the door. 1,000 horses wait for their riders of light. Colors so brilliant, only closed eyes see them. All the senses heightened now. Dreams tumble clear, as it was in the beginning, when all of creation basked in the illumination of original innocence. Unafraid to wish for a cowboy beyond the door, with 1,000 horses waiting near the angels. Just for you, my sister. Cheryl Fuller.
Death of love. With the blade of air, the words cut, that which once was whole, that which once was holy. You became the tyrant king, and I became your dark goddess, pulling your strings under moonlight spells. My words, your words, the sword of air, cutting you in half, cutting my other half. We forgot once we were one, that we were never meant to divide. Elsa Ramos Elias.
Snapshots from the edge. Newly discovered dwarf planets are called edgewalkers by some. They were ready to be seen, hovering deities in the immense cold of space. Death has felt like that to me, as it appears out of some wild void, often without notice. The mystery companion of birth's own immense hot clarity. Visceral snapshots of unrecoverable loss found their way onto the big book of my life. Some were framed at first by Catholic notions of hard to reach redemption. The sound of clicking rosaries and wailing women in the forefront. Beloved pets passing, political assassinations, friends in Vietnam returning home. Dead to the world, their youths shattered. Events that shred the soul of the world and my heart with them. No one spoke about what death was, no rites of passage to mark such a passage, especially when my cousin was decapitated in a car wreck. Funerals felt crazy and impersonal, yet presented a sober acceptance of holding the departed dear. I bookmarked some of the memories more poignantly than others. And then I saw failed marriages, miscarriages of intent and body, and miscommunications of all kinds as outlines of my strong character in sore need of attention. I went into native lodges to sweat my prayers and ask Creator for help, breathing into the edges of smoke-filled steam, knowing I courted the demise of my own drama in return for an introduction to the eternal. It has been my fate to push the envelope and walk the trail edge since childhood, peering closely at gods who'd managed somehow to transcend their own separation from self. I forsook dogma and doctrine in favor of the night skies and the morning sun. The elements rejoiced. I was beginning my own boat ride into eternity, and the ocean was still with promise. I heard a story decades ago about how the two mothers contacted Pele to build a double-hull canoe for some unimaginable journey into a new dimension. She was one of 13 siblings living in the Southern Tropic, about to leave her family and her home forever. I was startled and undone when I heard that Pele invited death into her canoe. Why ask when death already stalks you? Surrender that trembled at the price of a transformation so large, sailing into an event horizon, tacking along the lip of swells unchartered. Death taking its own snapshots as the edge walker of them all. Now I am seeing, and I'm ready to be seen. Norma Tarango.
Chapter 7, Cosmology. Now we enter the poet's personal experiences of their own deaths, the power of their knowing. Now let us fall with them into the cosmos of death itself. Jaya.
Now, now that I am 75 years old, I realize that sooner or later, I too will disappear and die. What happens to me? What happens to myself as an individual? Do I merge back into the collective? Does everything that I believe is important or that I create disappear too? Truthfully, unless I created something that the larger collective deems important, everything that is me does die and disappear. Yet deep within me is a belief that something of myself, my separate self, may continue, since in truth, everything, including the stars, nature's bounty, and ourselves, are both unique and the same. Currently, I believe that when I die, my essence joins the collective cosmic soup, only to be born again in some new way. Thus, I as a unique person continues by merging with the beautiful cosmic soup. I'm uncertain what part of my unconsciousness, my unique consciousness, remains. What is surprising to me is that as I've aged, the idea of losing my separate self becomes less frightening and more comfortable. Still, these beliefs temporarily disappear when I face death, especially death of loved ones. In those moments, I am engrossed with overwhelming grief and loss. I can soothe myself by saying that they've joined our collective cosmic nest, but my heart grieves and releases loved ones reluctantly. Just as in life, at times, I resist and fight necessary change, no matter how clear it is that change must occur. There's a part of me that does not want to die. Another part sees it as a natural process that promises something new will emerge. I want myself to stay active in life. I visualize a peaceful death. I see myself gracefully letting go when in truth, in our modern world, many of us die in hospital with multiple machines and IVs going into our veins. Death can be beautifully and equally terrible. Currently, I fear the death of close loved ones. Having lost many, I know absolutely we die. When younger, somehow that thought was a distant thought. I am striving to find a way to contain my grief as one by ones my loved ones pass, with me soon to follow. So currently, I'm trying to create an inner garden that tenderly buries loved ones and contains some of the intense anguish I know I will experience. I hope to imagine a heart-satisfying way to absorb and cope with the death of loved ones. I hope I can imagine an inner garden that honors my grief and every wonderful, unique soul I am privileged to love and be loved. Thus, I will plant my memories of the beautiful souls I love to become part of our exquisite cosmic nest. Sharon Jaya Kaman.
Garden Death Teachings. I am in the garden. I have set myself here to meditate on death. In the garden, my hands in the dirt, I come to learn from the earth about death. I crouch beside the rock rose bush. It is struggling. Some of its leaves are yellow, a sign of distress. Some mineral or water missing, too much heat. But those are not the reason its graceful, thin rose petals fall off each day. That is the lifespan of a rock rose flower, one day. Its buds open, bloom, and drop. Scalloped white triangles, a blood red drop of color at its yellow edge, encircle the bush by sunset. One day. When did we decide that our lives deserved to be lived so long, or that we should be deathless? And then there is me, the gardener. I am to deadhead the daisies. They have already died. I am trimming the dead ones to allow new daisies to have their spot in the sunshine. The old making way for the new. The cycle of life embodied in a daisy bush. Or there is me, the gardener, determining which plants get to stay and which I pull. I pull weeds. Weeds are volunteers. Plants I've determined I do not want in my garden. Long grasses that sprout up in the middle of my snow and summer or sorrel. I am the determiner of life in my garden. I will weed those out. COVID-19 is like a gardener. If one is old or infirm, they are designated as weeds. They are plucked. Any one of us could be plucked, but it seems the old or infirm are the largest population of victims. Did we think they would live forever? Did we never consider their time was limited? Do we think that is harsh? Do we blame God? Or do we see that there is a circle of life? Birth, life, death. And that there have been plagues, pestilence, fires, earthquakes, accidents, death, forever. The cycle of life can be gentle, violent, tragic, or expected. Whatever meaning we give it, death will come. How do we prepare? Turn away, run, drink, drug, rage, numb out, or come to peace with it. It is before all of us. If not now with COVID-19, it is still on its way. Even as cryonics procedures freeze whole bodies, it is done on the science of hope. Hope that the technology will be developed to resuscitate the patient. A wish, a hope, a volunteer for science, an avoidance, a terror, a dismissal of death. Where am I on that spectrum? Where are you? I am not afraid of the afterlife. It calls me with its love, its freedom, its beauty, a transcendent place of color, kindness, adventure, connectedness, joy, and learning. A reconnection with loved ones who have journeyed there before me. I am afraid of dying. A certain kind of dying. Painful, long, drawn out dying. And if not painful physically, painful mentally. A slow disintegration that renders familiarity a stranger to myself and to those I love. I dream of going quietly in my sleep, my relationships smooth and loving, old grievances, former mistakes forgiven, choosing better, not bitter, each moment something, someone does not fit my expectation. Apologize, forgive, correct, or move away. May all the choices I make daily sow the seeds of a peaceful death. The saying, as we live, so shall we die, a mantra I live by. When I think that, I relax. I imagine myself held in the womb of Mother Earth, Gaia. As she births me, her breasts and belly soothe me. She hands me up, cradled in her palms, an entity so small, so seemingly insignificant, to join with all the others. They, you, are my brothers and sisters. I am one with you all. So I cannot be insignificant, either to her or to each of you. There is a letting go. I can let go that witch thought of I am insignificant. The passing from this world to the next goes smoother. As I let go, the strings attaching me to earth, my husband, my kids, my granddaughters dissolve. I know I will love them and be with them in so many ways I cannot be, am not with them now. Why be afraid? Really, there is no separation. There are just different forms. I will walk in that belief. I will breathe in that experience. I will remember we are all one, connected throughout eternity. Donna Blethyn.
My own breath. After my last exhale, I notice an extended pause, eventually realizing the next inhale is not coming. I'm falling backwards with my arms outstretched onto a membrane that gently swallows me whole. The sensation of pressure around my body is gone. Spatial orientation, gone. There is no up, down, left, right, inside, outside anymore. The mechanical forces that used to hold my body together, gone. I'm floating inside a sea of comfort, satisfaction, and contentment. Mental distractions that I once believed were keeping me safe, gone. If I had my body, I would be tumbling, doing somersaults in this space without gravity, exploring the feeling of weightlessness. Don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy being pure love, pure consciousness, pure potential, merged with the universe. It's nice, but something's missing. I don't feel anything. There's no contrast. There are no edges. I can't push off anything or feel movement. I no longer go from here to there. I'm already everywhere. No need to pick and choose what to remember, what to believe. I now know everything. No wonder there's so much love here. If it were anything else but love, it would be intolerable. When I was breathing, I used to think of the air flowing in and out of my lungs as spirit. Now I am spirit. I'm the breath of life. I'm the force that circulates, connects, and permeates all things. I savor my role as an animating force, but one of these days I'll happily return to the sensation-rich human body, to the feeling of being separate, simultaneous with the desire to merge. I am so entirely whole and complete. There's nothing lacking at all. I'm full to the brim with love. But I must say, I miss the boundaries, the structure, the body sensations, the relationships. I'll go back there one day. Kathy McConnell.
Darkness. Let the darkness eat your eyes. It will give them back to you. Let the darkness eat your eyes. It will give them back to you. And you will know, and you will know compassion. Let the darkness tear open your form. Release your glowing innards. Let the darkness tear open your form. Release your glowing innards. Let the darkness leave you still on the cold, cold earth. Let the darkness leave you still on the cold, cold earth. Watch it play as you stand and witness your eyes, its form. Now let the darkness heal you, stitch you back together, fill your occiputs, nuzzle your cheek. This friend, it teaches, it heals, it terrifies, and it waits. It waits. It waits. the darkness eat your eyes, it will give them back to you. Let the darkness eat your eyes, it will give them back to you. And you will know, and you will know, and you will know. Darkness, 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 darkness. Raven Lakins.
Shedding. I had only planned to relax in the bath, to let go of the day and ease myself into sleep. As I wait for the tub to fill, I trace a feeling back to a thought, then back to feeling again, and realize I am ready to let go of the me that believed an old story. The water reaches the right height. I light a candle, turn out the light, slip into the water, and close my eyes. A spiral emerges in my visual field, and then another, and another, until all I can see is a web of spinning, interconnected spirals moving both separately and in unison. A voice guides me to go into the spirals, so I do, and begin to feel contractions, not coming from within me, but surrounding me, moving down and around and through me in waves as though I am being birthed. The stronger the contractions, the faster the spirals spin, becoming a vortex that would dissolve me. Tears flow as I feel myself letting go. Sparks of rainbow light fly off the spiral vortex in all directions. In time, the intensity of the contractions ebbs. Stillness settles into me. I rise from the tub, put on a robe to sit in front of the mirror. My eyes open into a relaxed focus. The reflection in the mirror flickers 3 times, then disappears as a television set that has lost reception, leaving only the candle's glow and a pixelated blackness. I close my eyes again and see the nucleus of an atom. What is that, I ask? The first seed of all creation, I hear. I approach slowly, drawn into its center, then open into the expansion of all that is. Jennifer Bloom.
Under the ceaseless sky. The rocks and pebbles scatter, find their place, settle in the earth, and glint light. Only the humans cannot rest. Other animals feed and dream and mate and birth. They cherish and whistle and fly and run. And when it is time, they lay down upon the fecund earth and glint light. Only the humans restlessly wander, seeking meaning beyond flower blossom, tree leaf, a happy gaze into the streaked sky. Oh, and they create. They belch out the things like gods and dig deeper and higher into the stricken alpine. Restless in their wanderings, their eyes red-rimmed and never sated, they leave their dreams unanswered and their ancestors to gray dust. Unremembered, the ghosts too wander. The nation becomes peopled with invisible ones who eat lightning and charge the sky. The pebbles and stones tremble in their long knowing and offer the wandering ghosts a home. So today, in your restless searching, pick up a pebble and let it drink of your heart. Then set it down with thanks and go on your way until again you come and touch the stone and with gratitude say thank you, O sister, O father, O restless muse. Thank you, O grandmother, O cousin, O old being of the faded ground. Teach us to rest, to reclaim our place among you. O stone, O rock, O gravel, O bone. Carolyn Bridget Flynn.
And now let's take a moment of silence to allow our hearts to drink in all these pebbles, all these thoughts, all this beauty that has been showered upon us this evening. Just let yourself feel this energy. It is not death as we imagine it that is pain. The problem is death in life, being dead while being alive. No carpe diem, no taking life by the horns and riding it bareback. No spirit of fire, no mind of desire, no bleeding heart, no hair blown back in high winds while rushing to rescue friends and people you don't even know. No deep urge to create sacred art in that singular sacred moment on that singular sacred planet Earth at that singular sacred crossroads of revelation and truth. Living as death, walking without love, nor creative burn, nor creative burst. That is the greatest crime against the sacred living universe. And here we end tonight's reading of Death, Deep Reflections from the Sisters of the Holy Pen. And I would like to take a moment to thank all the people who have put this together for us. It has been so wonderful for us to be able to experience this reading with Bookwoman Bookstore in Austin and also online. You can get the book through Bookwoman. And we also thank very much the group that is operating out of Bookwoman Bookstore called Getting to Know the Goddess, who co-sponsored this tonight. And I really want to thank the Sisters of the Holy Pen, all that they put into it. If you'd like to learn more about the Sisters of the Holy Pen, just go on to sistersoftheholypen.com and you can look up your favorite poet and everything she has done. And there are also quite a few more of us, and you can check out the rest of our work. The book Death is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and it's available at bookstores throughout the world. All right, thank you very much. And I'd like to turn this back over to Jennifer, probably. And thank you so much, Jennifer and Path, for putting this together. It has been so wonderful what you have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you all for being here. I see that Susan, post. Susan, do you want to say anything before we close?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. I was so happy that I caught, I think, half of the presentation. I think that whoever put together the combinations and the flow did a really good job. And a shout out to the singer. It was a beautiful chant. I really enjoyed that. I needed that after my day today. And so it's really nice to see you all again. And I hope that we'll have a chance to do something else in the future. And if there's any way I can facilitate anything, give me a call, write to me, pitch some ideas, and appreciate your support. And it's just so wonderful to see such a gathering. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're putting the link to the book, the Bookwoman link, in the chat. So if people, and I know, Pamela held up the book. So this was a selection from a very full, rich book. And so it will be nourishing for many, many years to come. And a lot of beautiful writing to dive into. So with that, we will close. Pamela, do you want to play us out with your bowls?
I would love to play us out with our bowls.
play
Okay, with our bowls here. So I'll just start playing, which I love to do, and you can just log off and log into your next vision. All right, here we go.